Like I often share, like I talk about self-inquiry, and it's like I was talking about self-inquiry in this room so a long time back, and there was this, horrible traffic noise outside, and I said, and I was talking, and then I said, can you hear the traffic noise? And everyone heard the traffic noise outside, but before that, no one was hearing the traffic noise outside, and everyone here has had that experience. There can be like lots of noise, but you don't hear it, you see. So, and like I often share, like I live up, there's a tube track outside of my house. And like people would come and they'd hear the tube and they'd feel sorry for me. They'd go, oh, you've got that horrible tube going outside. And I didn't hear anything, So I just say that because to the ego, if you've got a noisy, like the ego would rationalize, if you've got a noisy tube track, every time it goes by, you would hear it and you would suffer. Because it's physical, it's real, you can't deny, but it's not true. Everyone's experience, if you're real about it, is like, once there's no interest in it, the meaning has gone, or it's nothing, or it's boring, you actually don't hear it. It doesn't block. You can have a peaceful day. For me, I could have a day where I wouldn't even notice it because I live there, and there'd be a tube track going around, every few minutes. So, so that's a heavy belief. If it's real and you hear it, you have to hear it. You don't. You see what? Yep.
Do you want to finish what you're saying?
Yeah. So it's like, so physical pain. Once you lose your interest or stop giving it so much meaning, it doesn't exist. For me also, general aesthetic is just mimicking what can happen spiritually. You get detached from it. It's out there, you forget about it, So when you let go of your belief systems which hook you into things, it's just the belief systems which mean, if you have a belief system, if there's noise outside, you're hearing it, you will hear it. And I say if you let go of the belief, you won't hear it, you see. So this is, this is what I want to say. You've got all these rambling thoughts going on in your head, non-stop. And one of the beliefs, that's a belief system. If I've got these thoughts, I have to hear them and be at the mercy of this thinking for the rest of my life. That's a belief, that's an idea. But actually, when you lose the meaning of every single thought, the only thoughts that you remember will cause a problem, the interesting ones, Like the thoughts like, the thought that the grass is green, if you had that thought walking down, it would be gone in a split second because it's not interesting. It wouldn't block your peace. It'd be there for a fraction of a second. If you've got a thought like that person doesn't like me, that might stick in your head. You see, not because it's like a super powerful thought to the grass is green thought, but it's just because the ego has projected so much meaning and interest. Now it seems to be really loud. You see, so the course is like when all your thoughts are meaningless, every thought has been, every projected value that you've been programmed with of every thought, it's just a thought. I mean that's part of what I talk about. So it's just a thought, like that. When you make the thought that that person doesn't like me or make that person meaningless, there's nothing there. There's nothing unless I look here, I just saw it's green. Otherwise, I can't keep that thought in my head. It's not important. It's meaningless. So that's the thing. So the thing is, like, are you going to always be a victim of your thoughts, and is it always going to win? No. Once you realise that even a noise outside can be made meaningless, any thought can be made meaningless, and things that are made meaningless you tend to lose. I mean, it's more or less like it's not happening, even though it's happening. Or you can function, but just because there's a green carpet here is not going to stop me from being at peace. The green carpet doesn't have the power. I mean, for some people, probably one person on the planet, green carpets are like the loudest thing on the planet, but for me it's not. But that's with everything. Like some people see a certain individual and they go into shock, but actually it's just the meaning. For another person, they wouldn't even notice them. It wouldn't stop the state of peace. So it's not the person, it's not the noise. There are some people who are not, pain doesn't happen for them. Or they know how, they've mastered pain. Or physical illness, or the body, or whatever it is. So it's just the projected meaning. And also beliefs anchor, like, no, I can never get rid of all of my thoughts. I'll always be a victim of them. those are powerful beliefs. That's a very powerful thought, interesting thought. That's all it is, an interesting thought. There are some who are not a victim of their thoughts, you see. So
just one of the lessons of the Course in Miracles is all things I think I see reflect ideas, and I'm having to question the validity of my ideas, my thinking, and I'm just asking that God, that what comes into my head is from God, or ideas from God. But it's difficult. How do I say? So ideas come, and then I think, oh, that's a good idea. I've got some lots of good ideas, and then this is the thing is, so I project that out, and I see things, and it's difficult to deny it because it's there. I really see it. This is really happening. And then what happens is, I think this is where the ego comes in and says, I judge these as valuable. I may think this is important to me. I must fight for the end to it, you know. And then it becomes really strong, an obsession. Is what I get. I'm full of obsessions, and it's basically, it's the world will come to an end if I don't get this. Life, and then it sort of destroys me as well, and so yeah, that's and so I'm having to question, you know, my thoughts all the time. This is just ideas, you know. So that's
yeah. I would. I think with obsessions, in terms of the Course, you know, like all my thoughts are meaningless. Because like if something is really, really important for me, it's very easy to have a whole story and a dialogue about it. And the thing is there that any thought is meaningless. You know, for me, when you're getting to advanced states, you don't allow a thought to make a second thought and then to run into a story about something. Because that's already like, you've allowed the first thought to be meaningful. If you grant reality to your very first thought, like I haven't got enough money in my bank account, if you don't make that thought meaningless, you're going to have like all the other thoughts will follow.
Just worry and anxiety.
You know, so you see, it's like every thought is meaningless, because otherwise you've given authority to the ego to talk for like 20 minutes in your head, and are believing it, which gives it more power to carry on, like a train. So it's like the very first thought, oh, you haven't got enough, you know, eventually when you get advanced, it's like, you know it's a thought that's going to develop, you just say it's meaningless, you let it go, you see. So you're catching it faster and faster, you know, do you see? And that kind of connects you to the peace. Does that make sense? So otherwise then it becomes like therapy. It's like my ego said 500, you know, this, and what's the answer? But in terms of the Course, like all your thoughts are meaningless. You see?
Even though I could see my bank account as an example.
Yeah.
It's real for me, but then you're saying don't attach meaning to the thoughts.
Actually, for me, the bank account is not the source of my security. It is the spiritual connection provides is the provider in that sense.
So you're saying that even your bank account, stated bank account, really your security is not tuned into that. It's not connected to that.
No.
Yeah.
For me, it's not connected. How much money is not going to be the source of my security. In fact, my connection, my spiritual connection to God is the source of my security.
And that can be applied to everything.
To everything, yeah.
So.
Actually, that's correct. Actually, what the source of love, everything going my way, the source of everything is going to be okay, is that spiritual connection to that source. So, like if I'm disconnected and I have a thought, like if I have £1 million, everything's going to be okay, and I get the £1 million, you know, and I'm still disconnected, you know, things are going to go really, really badly. I'll lose the money quickly, or other bad things will happen. It's not going to do anything. So I'd rather, you know, it's like I take out the meaning of money. Because for me, money is meaningless. It has no power. The mystical, you know, the saints have great faith. You know, Mother Teresa. This is on YouTube. I think this demonstrates the faith of a saint. So the Mother Teresa has given her life to just be of service to God. And there's an interviewer on YouTube with Mother Teresa, and the interviewer asks Mother Teresa, has anyone ever knocked on your door asking for help and you've had to turn them away because you can't help them? And she said, never. She's never turned anyone away who's asked for help. And she's always had an extra bed and an extra plate of rice. And this is like Mother Teresa here, who's helped so many people. Surely there must have been one day when she didn't have an extra bed or an extra plate of rice and wasn't able to help. But no, it was like that divine source always provided what was needed without fail. Even if you want to help all of India, it still made sure there was enough to. So she never turned anyone ever away. So is the amount of money in your bank account the source of your money? No. For me, it's like meaningless. When you're connected to the power source, you know, that is your guarantee for safety. But
not just money, a place to live.
A place to live.
Somebody's got me scared saying, look, I'll end up living in a cardboard box on the street.
Yeah.
But if your source is God, then you're not going to worry about your home.
Yes, yeah. I go to the 12-step fellowships where we have the big book, and they say, it says it in the big book that it's about something like it's about trust in God. It doesn't matter whether your wife's with you or not, or whether you've got a job or not. It's that connection to the source, and that's the truth you find in those fellowships. That you know, if you work your spiritual program, you know, it doesn't matter if you're homeless or have a home, whether you have a wife, not a wife. You know, a wife is not the source of security. A huge bank account is not. It's not going to stop the destruction. It's just that connection to the spiritual connection. So that's the true thing. But the ego, it believes in causality, which is what I was talking about earlier. Medicines have the power to heal you. Money has the source to keep you secure. So the ego imbues external things with magical properties. So the ego will make like money a higher power, or make medicine a higher power, or all of those.
But having a wife will make me whole.
Or having a wife, yes, having the perfect girlfriend will make me whole. It imbues magical qualities or special qualities onto external things, and thinks, yeah, if I had enough money. So for me, like, money hasn't got the power to keep you safe. If you're disconnected from the source, destruction's eventually going to come your way, because that is the source of everything going right for you. That connection to the source. So my background is that I'm in several 12-step fellowships, but that wasn't before. 16 years ago, I was working in the stock market, and I was a compulsive overeater. That was my main addiction. But I'd started workaholism, which was compulsively working in the stock market non-stop, and I'd started other addictions. You could say codependency or whatever you want to call it. And so I had all those addictions going on, and 16 years ago I was coming back from New York on a business trip, and my feet, I was just explaining, 16 years ago I was working in the stock market, coming back from New York from what was a kind of a prestigious trip, but I just worked myself and ate myself and just sort of used enormously on all kinds of things. And on the flight back, my feet were swollen, and it was like I had to take my shoes off because the feet were that swollen. And I got back. My mother was absolutely terrified, and I got a blood test done. I was admitted straight away to the Royal Free Hospital. I had kidney failure, and literally, I mean, actually, to this day, the doctors don't know what happened, because I lost about 70% of my kidney function in about one day. So that, you know, I was literally on the rope to death, literally at an astronomical rate, and they hadn't really seen anything like it. They said, what they said to me is they had only known of about 4 cases in medical history, and they didn't know why that happened either. So it was like I was facing death, and my kidneys were going down at a rapid rate. You know, the body was swelling up. And so, I mean, my first degree is in biochemistry, so I obviously understood the language. And I mean, two things crop to mind when you've got something like that. Either a nuclear illness that you finally got, or it's some kind of autoimmune illness that is like savaging your body really rapidly. So obviously I was like, it was the worst case scenario, and I was facing death. It was a moment of powerlessness, and I had my first spiritual experience. And the first spiritual experience, it was like suddenly a heavenly, timeless peace came upon me. And it was like being transported into another dimension. And actually for myself, I actually heard a voice and a sort of a spiritual message, and it said, find the spiritual solution. And that's all it said to me. It didn't say where to go. Hence I started a long search to different types of spiritual groups and different kinds of spiritual teachers to find out, you know, because the message was so profound that I had to find the spiritual solution to, of course, getting kidney failure, you end up on a dialysis machine 8 hours a day to keep you alive. I got gout, so I had to use walking sticks. I developed asthma using inhalers. The body was shutting down, so it was horrific. At one point I did feel suicidal, because it was like I saw my legs swelling up and I saw there was no future for me. And so I thought, you know, I mean, I'm sure this before. What's the easiest way to commit suicide? Yeah, in that sense. And I thought, well, you research it on the internet, you know, because I wanted to, because I didn't want to like suffer or get it. I didn't want to suffer or get it wrong, and then like do a botched job. You know, like how many pills do you take, or how long do you leave the exhaust pipe on? I didn't want to do it incorrect. So I went on the internet. It's just coming out of my mouth today, but I went on the internet. And
I haven't heard of this before, Sabbir.
This is something new for the old
so
I went on the internet and I wanted to find out like what's the easiest and the best way to commit suicide. And finally, I found this book, and this is like 13 years ago. It's not like what you can find nowadays with Amazon. And so I found this book, and it said like it gave it gave these loads of different ways of committing suicide, and it sounded like this is the book, you know, the perfect way to do it. And I went on, and then it takes you to, it's a link on a website, takes you to a website to pay. And they go, if you purchase this book, it'll be 6 months, something like 6 months before they deliver it. So it was like, so it's like, I go, in that moment, the suicide idea deflated. And I was like, I can't be bothered to do the suicide thing. So I did go to very dark places with it. And anyway, I was frantically searching for this spirit, and I won't go into it now, all the different spiritual groups and gurus and all kinds of things in London. There's a huge amount. I went to cults. I remember one of the cults I went to is this, I won't mention the name, but it was like, as soon as I said like I'm leaving, you know, this man came up to me and said like, what did he say? You'll go to hell if you leave this group. You know, but I was always connected to some kind of intuition. It felt wrong. I also went to churches as well, where they said like, and you know, this guy said, this is the only church. And it was like, immediately I said, you mean, of all Christianity, this is the only church where I can get salvation? And I asked him that, you know, it's like, he's not going to say this is the only church in the whole world where you can get, and he said yes.
Yes. He said yes.
He said yes. Wow. So I didn't go back to that particular church because it felt wrong. It just felt like that doesn't make sense to me. But I went to, so I did go, but some lovely places as well. Trained in Reiki, spiritual healing. Trained as a hypnotherapist. Did all kinds of things. Went to the College of Psychic Studies. Anyway, I won't go into that story, but did a lot of stuff anyway out there. But one day, I went into this spiritual group, and I was assigned a mentor. It wasn't that spiritual group, but I was assigned an important man in my life. His name was Hans, a East German man, and there was something about him, you know, like every time he was in the room next to me, I'd just feel like really peaceful, and I would have these spiritual experiences, like I'd go in with gout, or this pain in my foot, and I'd just be in his presence, and it would start to disappear. So anyway, he said to me one day, he said, Sabbir, after you know a lot about me, said, like, take this DVD home and watch it. So I took the DVD home and I put it on the DVD player, and this man started to speak. And as soon as he started to speak, I had this, like, it was like this kind of like, it's called a Kundalini experience, but it's like suddenly this sort of tingling up the spine. This kind of like spiritual energy was like rushing up. And I had this, and it was like, I had this kind of knowing, all I can describe, like this man is going to be, it was like the next important message after the one in the hospital bed. This is the man that you need to, that is meant for you to be your teacher. And he was a man, his name, a lot of people know him in the group, he's written a lot of books. His name's Dr David R Hawkins. Now Dr David R Hawkins, as far as I'm concerned, everything I say in this group, please just take what you want and leave the rest. You know, it's not like, you know, this is just, you know. But his name was Dr. David R. Hawkins, and I knew with that spiritual experience that he was going to be my teacher. I later found out as I see it, his background is very eminent. So he like, okay, so some of you may not be familiar, or any of you may be familiar with the 12 steps, but he went into a place called Alcoholics Anonymous, and his sponsor was a man named Bill Wilson. So in terms of Alcoholics Anonymous, he had probably the best training, if you like, in that type of spirituality. But he also had what's classically called the enlightenment experience, where he became what's classically termed as enlightened. And I've seen him a couple of times, went out to America to visit him. So his background is, you know, very prestigious. He was, now he got connected with Wayne Dyer, who's a famous spiritual author. When Wayne Dyer went to see him, he was so impressed by the level of spiritual teachings that he introduced him to Hay House, and then he's got lots of books on Hay House. And he got testimonials not only from Bill Wilson, but also from people like Mother Teresa. So in terms of, for me, in terms of spiritual pedigree, if you're getting people like Bill Wilson, Mother Teresa, and you're being published by Hay House, even though, you know, it's like, and I had that spiritual experience. I didn't know anything about him, but I had the spiritual experience which did. So I knew he was going to be my teacher, the ticket out. So how bad was it for me at the bottom? You know, kidney failure, machine 8 hours a day to keep you alive, walking sticks, pain, gout attacks which are horrific, asthma inhalers, suicidal thoughts, but then having those spiritual experiences. And then, so Hawkins recommended, I would say, a threefold path of spirituality. Like the basics, the introduction to spirituality is like 12 steps. It's a good grounding. If you happen to have an addiction, it's a good grounding. But then the next level up, so for me, like 12 steps is like O-levels. And the Course in Miracles is like your A-levels. It's far more radical than 12 steps. It doesn't matter if you don't understand what 12 steps are. And then teachings like, at slightly higher would be the teachings of enlightenment. I think the famous author nowadays, who would be, who's sort of widespread, would be Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now. But anyway, my story goes, anyway, Dr. Hawkins, which I've done. I've done a 12-step group. I've done the Course in Miracles now. I'm passionate about it. The Course in Miracles now for there's 365 lessons, which you can download apps on your phone. They're freely available online. I was talking to someone who was quite humorous. You know, you don't have to pay £1 million to get them. It's freely available. And so I've been doing. Now Hawkins said that he had about 20 illnesses, and a lot of them were life-threatening. He had avian flu, which is a kind of bird flu, which the doctors. Anyway, it was life-threatening. He had ulcers. He had bones going wrong in his ears. He was, and doing the Course in Miracles and his spiritual work, all of them left him. and he ran a spiritual group in the States, and people with cancer, AIDS, myasthenia gravis, all those illnesses left as they were doing the Course in Miracles. I'd had that spiritual experience, and I was in like really dark times, but I'd had the spiritual experience, and it was like I have to do 12 steps, but then I have to do the Course in Miracle lessons. He recommended personally, everyone's got different views, but the lessons are really important. So do the lessons, you know, it's one lesson a day, and I've done that, I think, nearly more or less like religiously, like my life depended on it, and I'm still doing them every day. I've done my lesson for the day this morning, 8 years later, and like, you know, I have so much wrong with me, you know, the dark emotions, you know, the physical agony, and yeah, I just need to do it. And I followed his teachings, you know, I joined the 12-step group, do the Course in Miracles, and it's like, so the kidney failure, it was like the kidney failure, I had a transplant, that's gone. The asthma, I was discharged from the clinic because it just vanished. The gout, several years back, quite a lot of years back, it suddenly stopped, so they stopped the medication for that. And I find this like the most like spectacular, even though it's a small miracle. I was given, I think, 13 medications for my transplant. Within 3 years, it went down to 1 medication, and the doctor said that he knows of no one else who's had a transplant who takes less medication than me, just one for a transplant patient. So the amount of miracles that I've had through applying the Course in Miracles has been it's been astounding. So I've been given that grace, and that's why I love to. That's why partly why this group is here, both on an emotional and physical. My history was not only just emotional, but I was in the pits emotionally, but also physically. So now my views on, like I said, take what you want and leave the rest, the Course in Miracles. Okay, so it's like I see it just pictorially. What happened for me is like I have an ego, and my ego is just built up of 2 components of things, is my view. One is all the programmed beliefs I've got within my ego. You know, like any ideas that I've got which I hold true. And I believe I picked these up, also believe in past lives, but I picked these up from parents, from society, from school, all these ideas like, if you're not a doctor, you know, you need to be a doctor to be successful. I did have that one. So all of these ideas, you know, watching Hollywood movies of what life should look like, hearing that you need a house, a dog, and 2.4 children before you can be happy. All of these things. So these are beliefs. You know, they become like my operating software for what I'm going to search for, or what I'm going to stay away from. All of these things. You know, those type of people are bad, or whatever, or this is good. So these are the beliefs. The other aspect of the ego is what I call suppressed feelings. Suppressed feelings. If I was primarily, my main addiction was food addiction. So basically, you could say it's a coping mechanism. But I could use, you know, theoretically, I could use anything not to feel my feelings in life. I could use food, I could use alcohol, I could use drugs, I could use relationships, I could use work or success, a plethora of things not to allow feelings to occur. So it then suppressed feelings, and Hawkins' work is very, very interesting. It's like, so if you're at the bottom levels, or you know, he's done a lot of research using something called kinesiology, but he's done, like, if you're at the bottom levels, it's quite easy to tell. So, and the Course, for me, the Course is a way to let go of separation, to discover the true nature. That's my simplistic view for today. But so it's like, if I've got tons of suppressed feelings and I've got too many belief systems that I'm holding on to, then I'll be at a place where I'll have, you could say, separation anxiety. I'll feel highly identified with the physical body. Like I'll be trapped in a physical body, and I'll be right down with the most negative of feelings. Like I'll feel depressed, I'll feel suicidal, I'll feel separate from others, and I'll have all those negative feelings. With that level come suicidal thoughts or severe acting out thoughts. So either I'll be wanting to binge out on food or distract myself through whatever activity not to feel. However, at those bottom levels, it's like an attractor field. It's like if I'm resonating at that, like huge levels of guilt, separation, it'll be like everything I do and everything that I'm attracted to will be self-destruction. You know, it's like, how can I destroy myself with food? How can I destroy myself in relationships? If I'm in a career, how can I destroy myself with the career? So it's that kind of like, you're like in a magnetic resonance of negativity, and you're drawn to negativity. So that's what I was. I was like working non-stop in the stock market, like from about getting there before 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes leaving as late as 10. I could feel the adrenaline, I was coughing up blood because I have bronchitis, but still working through that. So it's like you're in an insane grip of addiction and insanity. So that's the bottom levels. Now as you do spiritual work, like the 12 steps or the Course in Miracles lessons, or do like listen to teachers like Eckhart Tolle or Mooji. Mooji was, I forgot to mention it, but I will mention it because I think it is important today. Hans, I'm going back in the story, Hans introduced me to one other person named Mooji. Mooji is freely available on YouTube. He's got, I think, hundreds of hours worth of YouTube material out there. So I went to visit this guy Mooji, and I had another spiritual experience. So I know he was going to be, I have two major spiritual teachers. One is Hawkins and one is Mooji. I went to Brixton. At that time he was like, he had just a little person in Brixton. I say little person because he's now like a mega famous guru, but at that time, 15 years ago or back then, just had his little flat in Brixton. But I had again that spiritual experience when I sort of met him, and I knew he'd be my other teacher. I did have, a couple of stories short, but I had a one-to-one, I got a one-to-one opportunity to meet him privately, one-on-one. And he asked me, and I'll hopefully get time today to talk about the self-inquiry process, how you connect spiritually beyond the thoughts. You know, for me, the Course in Miracles and what Mooji teaches or Eckhart Tolle are just different routes to get to that place of the formless, or the stillness, or the oneness, or that which is beyond form, beyond time, beyond space, beyond the all. So these are just using different words to connect to that place, whether it be through the Course in Miracles, through Eckhart Tolle, or through Mooji, to get that to that place, that experience. Anyway, I went to meet Mooji, and he asked me these questions, which hopefully I'll go through with some members later if I get the opportunity. Is like, how do you connect to that place? And you know, what am I? The question is, what am I? And I started his processing. You know, I was familiar with him, and I got to this like, there's a witness though, or there's an observer, but it seems to be behind my head. And he asked me, oh, and is there something? Is there a person behind there? Is there something witnessing that? And then I had a white light spiritual experience. So what is a white light? I mean, I'm reporting it, but a white light spiritual experience is like the experience of infinite power, light and love beyond description. And there is something in the Course, one of the lessons I do, it's like, imagine the happiest moment you've ever experienced in this life, and then something like multiplied by 100 and 1,000 times more. So that would probably be the ideal way to describe it. You can't describe it. It's like living in this world would be like living in a dark shadow compared to that. And even your happiest moment would be like a dark shadow compared to a white light spiritual. It's on an order of magnitude. And it's beyond, I use this word sometimes, duality. Duality meaning this and that. There was no this and that. There was no world. There was no me. There was no thought. It was just like intense power and bliss beyond imagining. I was there for a while, and then it was like fragments of a thought seemed to appear in this like experience. And in a split second, there seemed to be a connecting with something that seemed to be a thought. And in that split second, I was back in the room, opposite Mooji. But I was like in intense bliss, you know, and it was like, everything was like in Technicolor. And there was no, now this is the thing, the reason I wanted to share it today was because I'd gone to him with this huge gout attack, full of pain in my foot. I had limped there all the way. And now, I mean, I didn't realize at the time, the miracle, like all the pain had gone in a split second. There was no pain. And I left the place, and I was like walking without any problem, and it was like everything was in bright Technicolor, and there was like an experience. And I remember later on Mooji saying that it was an autumn's day, and yet for me it was like it was bright summer. So I had that spiritual experience. So I did the Mooji and the Hawkins, and the Mooji, the Hawkins, and I did a 12-step program as well. I'm still doing a 12-step program. I won't mention which one, but I do quite a few actually. So I mentioned all of that. So I've witnessed miracles, and okay. So you just, one of the processes is with feelings, just allowing yourself to be with the feelings. The best way to do that is not to label or not to engage in thoughts. There's different ways of doing that, having quite an interesting, the Course in Miracles has brilliant lessons like was being discussed earlier. I'm not a victim of anything I see in the world. I'm not a victim of any person I see. I'm not a victim of pain. I'm not a victim of depression. I'm not a victim of dark thoughts. So that each of the lessons for me in a course is just a different angle to let go of form. Now sometimes I'll just say with the course, if any of the words, it uses the words like Jesus, God, the Holy Spirit, my view is that if those words are difficult for anyone, you can substitute it for a different word. Like you might use the word higher power or whatever it is. It's not the words which are, I would say, don't get too caught up in the words if a word is difficult for any particular person, because the course is just one, it's like using language, I would say, to be helpful. It's like using language to get to the formless, to get to a presence or something which is, and it does say something beyond time, something beyond space, something beyond form, you see. So it's using words to help you. Now there can be conflict when you read a certain word that hooks you into thinking, but I would say it's not so, try not to do that or substitute a different word, but whether you're listening to like people like Mooji or doing the course, they're just using words to help you get to the word less. So if you ever connect to that which is beyond time, beyond space, and is always eternally present here, if that experience resonates, then you read the lessons and you'll get the drift of what they're trying to help you do with each one. Forgiveness. For me, forgiveness, letting go or acceptance or whatever word, or letting go of meaning. Letting go of meaning is one of my favorites, but is just different ways of just letting go of the, I would say the ego has there is like a field of interest in thoughts, which is like an addiction. So it just latches on, and the ego latches on to anything, whether it be a physical sensation in the body, or pain, or an illness, or a particular thought, or a story, because it has interest in there. So one of the early lessons, or actually one of my favourite lessons, one of the very early lessons, which for me is a fundamental thing, is you look around the room. We'll be doing a lesson hopefully later today if you've got time. You go, this chair does not mean anything. And then you look around and you say, this cup does not mean anything. And then even if there was like £100 note on the table, you go, that does not mean anything. Or if there was a Ferrari outside, and that is also meaningless as well. Now, for me, the great thing, or even if there's, you see with the lessons as well, they go internal and external. So if you see an external object, like that Ferrari is meaningless. But also if you've got a pain in your body, that pain is also meaningless. So, or you've got a pain in your foot, or there's an emotion, is meaningless. So through doing that, what you're doing is you're letting go of the ego's projected meaning on something out there. And through different, or if you say, I'm not a victim of this pain in my foot, or I'm not a victim of the political system in this country, whatever it may be, or I'm not a victim of my boss, or I'm not a victim of my circumstances. So they're just different, but it says forgiveness, letting go of victimhood. The language, now in terms of sometimes uses the word God or the Holy Spirit. My one take I would have on that is that it's just a conduit to get to the formless. But once when the sun is formless, it's like you're one with God, because if God is formless, if God is beyond time, space, and location and form, and you're the sun, then you're in unity. And it's a bit like the biblical thing: "Be still and know that I'm God." When your ego is dead, I mean, obviously there isn't. The ego for me is the source of separation. It creates the identity of a something which is separate. So we talk a lot about duality. As soon as you have an I, or an idea of separation, and a thinking, and then a latching on to the interest in the body, then it's like immediately the separation and an I independent from otherness exists. So otherwise you get, like for me, I mean I'm guessing, I can be wrong, that lots of people have had spiritual experiences not realizing it, where you've just felt at one with everything. There was no thinking, there was just pure presence, and like everything's illuminated, and there's the absolute trust, and there's no sense of separation, not even hooked into your body, and it's like perfection in that moment. That for me is like, there is no sense of separation. You're not even aware of your body. It's like you're totally at one with the world. There's absolute trust, and everything is beautiful. So that for me, if anyone's had those experiences, that for me is a good correlation to what the Course is going. What something beyond time. Like everyone knows from experience, when you're having a good day, time flies. Yeah, everyone knows that from experience. And when you're having a bad day, the day drags. I had someone sharing on me, like, today's dragging. So actually, in terms of the Course, time. Now it uses the word illusion. Illusion can be very, very difficult for some people when you first hit the Course. My take on it being that while you're in the sense of being a separate entity, which is separate from other things, then the ego is the thing which makes time. It tracks time. It's like the ego is busy. Like, see, time is interesting. That's why it tracks things. Or if there's a resentment or something like that, or if there's a pain in the foot, then there's huge interest, and then the day drags. It can be like the day seems to be going slowly. When whatever event it is, a physical pain, a resentment, a fear, or whatever, when that's released, it's like, everything becomes light and time flies. In fact, in the most advanced states, there is no time. You're beyond time, you're beyond space, there is no sense of an I that is separate from anything. So everything spontaneously unfolds. And in that place, now, for me, my story, I haven't gone back to that suicidal place. I'm not living in the same dimension I was, 15 years ago. I do get negativities, but they tend to be much lighter and they tend to go much quicker. So I'm not down there where I was resonating at total despair. And my physical health, it's amazing compared to where it was before. No walking sticks, no dialysis machines, no asthma inhalers, all gone. So sharing my so the thing that I would say is it's like the when there's experiences coming. Okay, one of the things I did was like I knew like not to whenever you get a chance to be with a feeling, whether it be a dark emotion or a horrific pain, is just to know this technique of just allowing yourself to be with it 100% without resistance, and then that lets it go. And so I remember, Hawkins went through. He was allergic to anaesthetic, so he by mistake chopped his thumb off with an electric saw, and so he had to go in for. It's miraculous because he was very advanced spiritually. So he went in, and he told the guy, the surgeon who was operating, like, don't worry, you don't need to use any anaesthetic with me. I'll do a self-hypnosis technique. So this is the thing, like, if you master this technique, there's nothing you need to ever fear. So he went through the surgery, and the technique is like, you have to be 100% present with zero resistance to what's happening in life. So he went there. So if you imagine like a surgeon, like putting a saw with no anaesthetic, so he did the thing. So if you get it right, there is no suffering. So he actually went off into bliss. So if you get it right, if you resist, to the extent you resist, you feel agony, when that goes through. I knew he was telling the truth. So I've done it like with cramps. If you catch the cramp, at the split second go yes to it, 100% with zero resistance, it doesn't happen. And if you resist, if you go, no, I don't want this to happen, in that first second, you get an agonizing cramp. I remember once, I had this long needle being inserted because I've had so much medical treatment. And I remember I thought, oh, this huge needle is going to go into me. I thought, oh, it's a great opportunity. See, now life becomes more of an opportunity to like practice your spiritual. The technique, like, how can I be 100% like yes to this? And I was like drifting off into heaven as they were shoving this needle into me. And they literally had to like go into, like they were worried that I was going to like go. So they were like offering me like sugary drinks to wake me up. But so it does work in my own experience. I've gone through, had my transplant operation, and I refused painkillers after the general anaesthetic. I went through, I won't go into it today, but I was able to like deal with that pain through using just the spirituality, and I grew so much. So, so that's the thing. So we do the Course in Miracles lessons. We'll do a Course in Miracles, what should we do? Course in Miracles lesson or the Cancelling of Beliefs first? Let's do the Cancelling of Beliefs first. Okay, I'll just give an introduction to the Cancelling of Beliefs, which is one of the major things I've done that's really helped to shift a lot of things, and then I'll switch the camera off when we go around and doing the Cancelling of Beliefs. Because I was in such physical agony, but you can use cancelling beliefs for physical illness or emotional problems or resentments against others or whatever you want, any idea or anything you need to control in the world, you can cancel it. Like, unless I earn £1 million by I cancel my belief that I have to earn £1 million by tomorrow. I'm infinite being. So okay. So cancelling of beliefs, that comes from lesson 14 of A Course in Miracles. Lesson 14 of A Course in Miracles states, God didn't, well, it doesn't, it's in the lesson, it says God did not create cancer, so it's not real. Now, it says, it gives you instructions in the course lesson 14, that you should be specific, don't be too general. Like, God did not create illness. If you've got cancer, say cancer, or if you've got like duodenal cancer, say duodenal cancer, whatever it is. So, you can use that format, but Hawkins said the format that he recommended was, I cancel my belief in, for example, kidney failure. I'm an infinite being subject only to what I hold in mind. That made, I love both of them. God did not create kidney failure, so it's not real, or I cancel my belief in kidney failure. Both of them are equally, but I did the Hawkins method more. So, and it made perfect sense. And I'll share with you how I do it, what it meant for me. And, okay, so, but very briefly, I want to talk about the Heisenberg principle. And the Heisenberg principles, they found out that if a phenomena is observed, this is like a famous scientist, then just the observer changes the phenomena. Okay, so just by, if I observe this cup, it's already changed just by me observing it. They discovered that scientifically. So, what does that mean? It means that the power of just observing something has the power to affect it, and that was with a scientist. So what would happen if you were a saint? Around saints, it's quite common in knowledge that miracles happen around them regularly. People, their cancers disappear. So when you're at elevated levels, when you've cleared enough of your ego, miracles happen regularly. So, now, so that, for me, this is just my view on it, So it's like God is the creator, or God, or you can use whatever word you want, the creative source of it. There's for me, as I see it, there's a creative source of infinite power, light and love, beyond imagining. And the way I sort of see it is like, if there is a thought, that thought has the power to create. Yeah. So if you hold a thought of kidney failure, then that thought has the power to create kidney failure. If you release that thought of kidney failure, then that thought that was creating the kidney failure also goes away. It could be like you've got a thought like, I always have bad relationships. That thought will be so powerful, as I see it, that you tend to have bad relationships all the time. Or if you had a thought like, I deserve to suffer. So that thought, if you hold that, whether it be a physical thought like kidney failure, whether it be like a thought about relationships, whether it be a thought, they have enormous power just because you're holding it in your consciousness. It's like a huge thing to manifest, any thought. So it makes sense. So actually, this is now quite advanced. Causality, which is the basis of scientists and basics of most of society, is that there isn't some kind of higher power source, and everything is having an effect on everything else. So if you take, I'll say the medical one. Now, if you take this, what medication shall we use today? If you take this gout medication is for when you have pains in your feet. If you take this gout medicine, like as a doctor, because I did biochemistry, but if you take this gout medicine, it has a biomechanical mechanism which will mean that it will stop the gout attack. It will stop the uric acid production in your foot. That would be a medical explanation for what's going on. Now, I would say what's going on is that if I believe the doctor, that he said that as an authority, that if I take this medicine, your gout will be gone, no problem, then the gout is gone. So it wasn't actually, we've done a lot of scientific studies and 95% of people who take this medicine alleviate gout, so we're confident you do it. That wasn't the thing that stopped the gout. But the whole belief in medicine and the belief in the authority of the doctor and my believing that meant that the gout is gone. So it's not at the level, nothing out there has any power to affect anything. Everything is happening from the collective, from the power, being connected to the power source and the beliefs that all of us as a collective are holding in mind and creating this shared collective experience from the power source. So it's like, so the power of belief. I mean, that also explains the placebo effect. Why, often if you go, this is a powerful antibiotic, one of the most powerful, you have a placebo study, and you give it to someone, like a lot of them will just magically, their infections will disappear. So the power of belief. And the power of belief is so powerful that you can manifest an illness instantaneously. Like one of the many things I did was hypnotherapy. Hypnotherapy is very, very interesting, some of their stuff with belief work. Like you can like install an allergy under hypnosis and they'll get the allergy to poison ivy. And then you put it, they'll get like an inflamed reaction just by putting in a belief. So that's how powerful the thoughts being held in. So it's like, as soon as I cancel my belief in kidney failure, it'll go. The miracle will happen somehow. As soon as I cancel my belief in asthma, that will go. Because the belief I'm holding on needs to be wiped out, that I've taken on board from the collective. But also as well, from my own spiritual experience, I'm talking a lot today, but it seems to be coming out of my mouth. but my own spiritual experience, like when you're connected to the source, like things disappear in a split second. There's so much power and love. To go out, when you get rid of your ego, when you get that spiritual connection to source, it has such immense power to heal. It's incredible. So the Course in Miracles is just a way for me to let go of my beliefs and my ego. I could talk about
It's okay.
Yeah.
Finish.
Oh, okay.
Finish.
Okay.
Yeah, my last question.
Okay. So for me, the course is just letting go of all the beliefs in it. And I just wanted to share one last thing. Yeah, all of the lessons are different once you understand them. But one of my favourite lessons is meaninglessness, and that is what holds things, ideas or beliefs, or objects or feelings or kinds of things or illnesses in my mind, or negative states or impressions, is when interest or projected meaning is given to any particular thing. Then it's like that inflates the ego quite a lot. And the course, for me, what the course is doing is very, very scary if you're new to spirituality, because if you let go of every single belief, then your ego will tell you you'll be nothing, or you won't exist, or you'll be boring, or some story, or you need your ego to exist. It's like, for me, it's like the ego says, without me, without my thinking about the future and how to control everything, you won't exist. My fear and my thinking is what gives you life. And for me, it's like, no, if you let go of your, one of the lessons from a course is I place the future in the hands of God. Like, I'm in a member of a 12-step fellowship where we say keep it in the day. But the course for me is more advanced, more like keep it in the moment. It's more like you can dispense with your ego. Because if you don't need to think about the future, for me, practically speaking, you don't need to think. So it's like everything comes in the present moment, spontaneous, instantaneous, or intuitive. And everything unfolds. A bit like the prayer of St. Francis, you become an instrument of that field. The ego that was trying to be a separate entity, thinking it needed to do things and act differently is gone. And it's the death of the ego and the birth to eternal. Now St. Francis, we'll let you speak, sorry. Last thing, St. Francis said what you're looking for is where you're looking from. And that's, if you get a chance later, Mooji, Eckhart, what's like eternally present? There's like a witnessing or an observer or a stillness here that is looking at all the objects which are perceived out there, but it's not the objects. That's a very quick route to discovering something and not getting lost in hooking into objects, thoughts or feelings or physical ailments.
It always puzzles me. I'm totally with you, obviously,
Yes.
with in terms of belief system and the placebo effect.
Yes.
And all that. What I don't quite understand is years ago I used to work as a medical interpreter, and for a period of time I worked in a unit where they had babies.
Yes.
They would operate on them, and obviously the medication was working on them.
Yeah.
How do you explain that? Obviously the baby would not have a belief system developed at that time. They were babies. So obviously there must be an element as well that the drug plays a part too. So I don't...
I think that's a good question. Okay.
Yeah.
These are all just my views, of course, we don't agree.
Sure.
But no, but babies have got beliefs. My view, of course, there's past lives as well. And they do have belief systems already, or they can be programmed even at a young age. They take it from the collective, and that belief within the baby, or their pre-existing belief systems, are already they're connected to the source. So those will manifest, and there are belief systems which I call, like the course talks about the collective belief systems, which we're already buying into. So the babies are buying into collective belief systems. So for me, this is very, very advanced.
Even if they're not really, obviously they're still babies.
Yeah, they haven't got developed conscious mind, but they still have
mind.
belief systems which are still operating and manifesting. So at the most advanced levels, one of the hardest things and the biggest blow to the ego, and you don't have to agree with this, it's my view, is that nothing out there has any power. Absolutely, there's zero out there that creates. Everything within the collective, we're buying into collective belief systems which are manifesting or holding personal belief systems. But if you take a drug, it has actually zero power to do anything. Only it's the purchasing of the collective. And even the babies, even though they haven't got a conscious developed mind, still have their programming. To go into my views of why a particular baby is born with deformalities and all of that, I'd go into the story of karma and past lives, which again you don't have to agree with. as to why particular people are born in particular circumstances. Yeah, so my own view on that is that they are either their karma is to be imprinted with those belief systems and then express them, or they came in pre-existing with the belief systems which are now manifesting or being created. But that's my view on it. It's a great question.
Yeah. It has always puzzled me, that one, with the babies. I mean, they are, I'm totally with you with the placebo, and but with the babies, I thought, that's fine. Yeah, thanks. Yeah,
I mean, I'll go even more radical than that, so maybe I won't go that radical.
No, that's a good explanation. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
If we're powerless over a particular behaviour or something,
yes.
Through this process, is it as simple as just cancelling the belief, just saying I cancel my belief in, that will go?
It's a very good question. I would say
because, like, if I was powerless over some, like certain thing, and many times I've said I won't do it, I'm using positive affirmation, X, Y, Z, but that problem is still there, then it doesn't give me much faith in that unofficial process of saying, in other words, like I'm cancelling the belief, but I'm not saying those words, but I'm still verbalising that I want to change and that it's not there, and I'm trying to use positive affirmations, either Louise Hay or whatever, but if it's not producing the results and if that problem is still there, then I can't see how that would,
It's a good question.
If it's a small little habit, like, then okay, I'll look both ways before I cross the road, but it's not that kind of a thing. It's more like these ingrained ways of being and very detrimental behaviours and stuff.
It's good. I cancel my belief is like, for me, it's like, I would say it's like an invocation to the divine. So God did not create, like, for me, just even the phraseology is very powerful. Like, if I say I don't want kidney failure, for me it's not very powerful. It's like admitting that I can do it and I don't want it and that I'm in charge. For me, it would be quite weak, but there is a kind of thing when you kind of like surrender to divinity in a wholehearted fashion, and even the words are quite powerful. Like, it's very strong. God did not create kidney failure, so it's not real. That's very, very confrontational to the ego, because obviously there's an explanation for everything. It is real, and for me, actually, from my own spiritual experience, in the realm of the divine, God, hasn't been created by the divine. It's just pure love and light. So it's a very, very strong, absolute 180-degree opposite belief in what the ego is believing. It's like, actually, it's an illusion. God has never created it. It's not even real. So there's great power. And for me, like I was sharing the other week, it's like, if you go to a 12-step group, you're under the angels of the 12 steps. But the Course in Miracles have their own angels as well. And so it's like you're getting divine support just to use the Course in Miracles lesson in that phraseology. And Hawkins shared his, so it has great power. But as well, with all of them, you also do a combination of spiritual work along with the counselling. I wouldn't recommend just doing the counselling, but like either doing all of the Course in Miracles or doing a 12-step program, because they act as a, the counselling of belief is like a very, very specific surgery tool for taking out a specific belief. But you should just do the general work as well, like of all of the lessons, is what I would say. But I had great faith, because it's like the thing of a teacher sharing his experience. When I listened to Hawkins, and he said, like, this is, when you've got a particular problem that you want to take out a particular belief system, but he did say you've got to do the general work as well. Don't just do that one lesson and forget about it. Because for me that's not a sincere surrender. It's like, for me it would be like my ego saying, God, take away my kidney failure, but I want to carry on the same way I am. So it's not a powerful intention. Does that, for me as well, why it's difficult, why isn't it gone in one day? And that's for me what I was talking about earlier. Like, if you're got a lot of suppressed feelings and you've got lots of beliefs going on, before it can work, then it also needs to be some general cleaning, feeling out of feelings and taking out other belief systems which are disconnecting you from the power source. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not always, but sometimes.
I mean, that's half of it, isn't it? Taking that out, but then in taking it out, there has to be a new, like a way of being. Maybe that's the general work, like not to take away the belief that's causing the bad habit, but then developing a new way of being, I suppose. Not necessarily like replacing one habit with another, I don't mean that, but I mean, I don't know how to word it really. Does it make sense? Or?
The new way of being for me with the Course, I mean, the quickest way I would say it is being is beyond form, you see. So what's blocking off what is eternally present, eternally still, with no separation, in unity with everything, and is not laying any kind of meaning or judgment on anything. How do we experience that now? Yeah. So that would be what I'd call being. So the Course for me is just of letting go of the blocks, so that what is always here can be realized or recognized. You see. So it can be done like, in an instant. You can recognize what the Course is getting at. You see. Like if I ask you, is there something here in this room which is not of form, which is not a feeling, which is not a thought, which is beyond time and beyond location? Is there something here? Yeah, there is. Okay, that's it. So that, because we can talk a lot about it. We can talk a lot about it, but it's like, when you access that, which is quite easy, I think, to access, it's like, that's what the lessons are guiding you to. If you get like stuck in a negative feeling, like fear, or a particular thought, like I need more money by tomorrow, that's like you're losing the connection. You see, that thought, I need more money by tomorrow, whatever lesson you want to use, it's meaningless, cancel it, God did not create it, let it go back to the truth. Or if there's a feeling, what's observing the feeling, you see? And then because these are like, in the beginning they stick like glue. It's like, no, I have got kidney failure. It comes in because there's so much interest and hooking into that. So the different ways let it go. Once it's gone, naturally, it's, one of the lessons, I place the future in the hands of God. You see, then this great fear from the ego will come up with this lesson. It's like, no, trust that something will spontaneously and intuitively direct your life. You don't need to have thoughts about tomorrow. You don't need to have thoughts about how your kidney failure is going to be resolved. Just just get to that state and let go of all beliefs and emotions you're holding on to.
So essentially, from here to connect with that fullness.
Yes.
It's all a series of everything that you can cancel beliefs about, because it's all blocking you from that fullness. Yeah. It could be a single thought. I could have that, yes, connect, and then a thought will enter, and then that's what I need to cancel, keep cancelling my belief in that thought.
That's right.
Okay.
Thoughts or emotions or feelings, or even if you say, look, it can be done even with pain. As soon as I detach from the pain, it's something like there's something observing the pain. And then when you lose your interest in it, what's the meaning? And the story behind it, suddenly it starts to disappear. So this is even hard, even attaching to a thought or attaching to a physical sensation. Suddenly the light comes in and it starts to dissipate. Or illnesses. So these are like, there's so much interest in like the negative feelings, guilt, fear, and then the stories that come up, and then the physical ailments that have manifested. So I've even forgotten what question you asked.
No, I mean it makes sense, because it's almost like the ego doesn't want to be with that nothingness. It always wants something there.
Yes.
So whether it's annoyed, resentful, fearful, or even peaceful, blissed out, excited, happy, just always wants something there.
Yes.
You know, never wants to be just. I've noticed sometimes I might have little moments like fleeting, but and maybe it's trying to attach to that blissful state, you know, rather than just accepting everything that comes. You spoke about feelings earlier, and just allowing that feeling to come. And I think sometimes with feelings, it's possible to get conditional, thinking, oh, those feelings are good, I want more of those, but the other feelings, oh, I don't want those, they're uncomfortable. But feelings are feelings, it's just energy that just comes and goes.
Yes. Yeah, it's good. You don't want to make a story about what's in the present moment and what you want for the future moment. So it's like gradually as you apply the tools, you know, it's like you'll be guided into whether you use a lesson or whether you just allow the feelings to be, or whether you go to the observer of the feelings. Like there'll be kind of an inner guidance. As in this moment, if there's horrific pain or if there's horrific fear or there's a big story of thoughts, of how to let go whichever tool you use and just get back to the formless. So you'll be guided. You know, sometimes it'll be just allow the feeling to be here and don't make a story about it. Sometimes it'll be what's observing the feeling. Sometimes there'll be thoughts. So how do you, to cancel the thoughts, or whichever lesson it is, to pray for a miracle, see it differently. So you'll be directed in how to, because this is the pre-existing rubbish of your ego, I'd call it, that you have to sort of clear out, that's coming up, different feelings, different thoughts, different illnesses, that you're sort of clearing out one by one of these things. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's how I see it.
I think, along with, obviously with Sabbir, you can use all sorts of different, cancel your belief is one tool, going into self-inquiry. But, I don't know whether you're studying the course. I mean, over the years I found that I stick some time to various kind of things in the course that help me, for example. And for me, the most important is to be aware of what is going on in my mind. Let's say if I catch myself, let's say in a work situation, and help me to be at peace. So I kind of get, certain lines from the course, and I use, as tools, whatever that is. Sometimes I can use the counseling the beliefs, other times, all these are various kind of little personally that I've, along, or they help me to heal the conditions that create this situation. That's the other one that I'm using. So, so you develop your understanding, and that's what I have found over the years. I just kind of have quite a few lines that I use to get me to the place of peace, from that place of, being total mess or misery to the place of peace. So it's all various kind of really tools, and the concept of the belief is one of them, really. That's so you can use lots of different ones as you grow, and you can to get whatever that is, and that's what I have found anyway.
Yeah, because I think
it's most of the time I just use so many different ones of them. Yeah, so
like I can definitely feel that it's very tempting to run away from, just to resist. It's very tempting to resist whatever is going on, especially if it's very uncomfortable. And rather than resisting, I'm going to have to come back full circle and feel it anyway. So it's good to have the tools, I mean, it's great in a group like this where, but it's out there, in interactions with people or, certain situation, and it's almost like I freeze up, and I just, in that moment, I just don't know what to do, and the sort of anxiety and, I think you mentioned judgment, not being judgmental. I think that's good, like not thinking, oh God, I did it again, rather just, I think maybe practice and just take that space and just breathe, just, because in that breath maybe I can, just as you say, like help me think of another way or something, just, rather than being instantaneous and, reacting the old way.
Yes.
But really it's not always so much an action. I mean, that would follow the thought, so really what I'm asking for is a new thought, to encourage a new action, you know.
It's a new way of thinking, really.
Yeah.
From that ego perception to the, you know, the right-minded perception. So it's kind of almost like, you know, and you're asking, you know, somebody to bridge that gap between that place of, you know, the ego place, you know, the place of, you know, fear or jealousy or judgment, whatever, the place of
victim.
or victim, whatever that is,
think,
the
oh,
place
it's
of
happening again, it always
yeah.
happens to me, but these thoughts don't serve, they don't, you know, so sooner or later something's going to have to break that cycle, and I think it has to come from within, you know, it's like need a new way, and, you know, and love, you know, is a big, you know, sort of, it's this God power, higher power, you know, whatever you want to call it, it's like, you know, that when I've contacted that peace, it feels like love, you know, and so you also mentioned connection as well, and, you know, that state of oneness, and, yeah.
I'm amazed when people start talking though, even stories you hear today, when people own that wanting or that need, saying, you know, I give up, I haven't got the solution to this, therefore I'm open. And then all of a sudden, then that brings in thankfulness. Oh my God, maybe that was God behind that. Oh, that's working out really well. And that is a positive story. And it's like,
I mean, even as I'm sharing, like I can feel the ego's voice, like shut up, shut up. You know, you're just rambling, you're just taking up time, and you're, you know, all these horrible things. And how would you ever have that connection if you never, you know, it's like relentless and. You know,
but that's the ego mind.
Yeah, how do you ignore that?
Has got it.
When it's so insidious.
For me, in the beginning, it is like that.
Yes.
When I was at the darkest places, it is like 100 miles an hour, non-stop, and the negative feelings are horrific. It's just in the beginning, it's like faith and application. You know, either you're cancelling it, or this thought does not mean anything. Then another thought comes, that doesn't mean anything. Later on, the more advanced tools came, like what's observing all thoughts, and is not a thought. You see, what observes all thoughts and not a thought. So that those become the feelings. The feelings, what I've developed through a lot of practice. Like I used to get these. They were great. I used to get these huge gout attacks in my feet, horrific pain. And so how it was like, okay, there's gout. So I would like to go to the formless. You see, even beyond using any thought with the situation. So there'd be horrific pain, there'd be like a story, like this is horrible, but no, as soon as a thought starts, let it go. So like you start to catch thoughts the instant they happen, and you let them go. And it's like, so eventually it's like, there's just 100% like being with the feeling, you know, and there's no thoughts in that thing. When you get it, it's like you're just one with the experience, and the experience is one with you. In the beginning, it's like a horrific pain in the foot, but then it's like you don't use any thought, and you're just one. There's no you, and there's just an energy. It becomes like there's an energy in the room, which is being experienced, but it seems to be localized to the foot area. Then you let go of localization to the foot. Then it becomes like a fuzzy energy. You're not using thought. It's like the sensation, there's a fuzzy energy here. And then it starts to dissipate. And then it would take like half an hour of just being 100%, not resisting. No stories, no I don't want this, no thinking about it, no editing, just being with it. And then it diffuses from location to an intensity and gets more and more diffuse. Then after a while the pain's totally gone. And then I'd walk. I'd walk fine for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and then it would start to come back again a bit. Then I'd have to sit down and do it again. And then after a while, doing this and the course, then it was like I stopped having gout attacks. They got less frequent and less severe, and then eventually, like they just didn't happen. They haven't happened for years now. They took me off the medication. So that's the thing of, I call it like with stuff, emotions and things, like the spiritual warrior attitude. It's like rather than saying I don't want this, or please, you know, please not let this not happen. It's like, how can I not use thoughts and be 100% present and allow it to be like you want it? Yeah. So that's the attitude you have to do when you're as advanced as Hawkins and you're going through surgery pain, and they're about to chop your thing off with no anaesthetic. you know, you don't have time to like get it wrong. You don't have time to get it wrong, because if you get it wrong, if you resist with something as intense as a blade going through you, then the pain is going to be excruciating. I mean, I've practiced a lot with resistance and being 100% present, and I've had that with needles and cramps, and there's nothing happens. You know, it doesn't touch you. But if you resist, you know, if you resist a bit, then you feel it. If you resist a lot, it's agony. You see? So once you have those spiritual experiences, you realize like some horrible feelings coming up, forget the story, let it be. Don't even think about it. Just welcome it. It's like an attitude. It's beyond thought and beyond. So that's the way you do it. So whether it's a pain in the body, the thing with life is that you don't know what's going to happen next. You know, if you place the future but it's like an attitude, a non-verbal attitude to life of just like being 100% yes. You know, or if it's like, oh, I'm going to have surgery now, or I'm going to have whatever it is, it's like, okay, I'm going to be, for me it's like, I'm going to practice. I want to be as good as Hawkins. You know, so it's like, okay, surgery, pain, no anesthetic, like, let's get this right. He got it right, you know. So, and then he shared his experience, so it's possible. And then I've done it with smaller things, and it is possible. So I can also share my experience. If you don't resist 100% with it, and don't go into thought, you know, like huge spiritual aid is on your side. Or you can even go into bliss with the most horrific circumstances. But the attitudes, you know, sometimes, yeah, for me it has taken practice. You know, I wasn't able to because the ego comes in and makes a story. It's like in the beginning it'll make before you know it, it's talked for about 2 sentences about it. As you get faster and more disciplined, you can catch the ego after half a sentence, and in a bit more time, you can catch it just as a thought emerges, and you're back to being with the experience, you see. So you get, yep,